This week, I'm talking with Julia Chasman, a designer based in LA whose aesthetic is very similar to my own and embodies the spirit of eclectic design. She takes pieces of a client's story, focusing on important experiences in their lives, and translates those into design decisions that don't conform to a narrow style category. In fact, when you look at her rooms, you see all of the elements I encourage you to incorporate into every room of your house: art, antiques, nature, handmade items, and pieces that represent either your own heritage or crafted goods from places you visited. In this conversation, you'll hear recommendations on making upgrades to an older home, pattern mixing, and collecting amateur art. Here's Julia. Julia Chasman,
Yeah,
welcome to the Slow Style Home podcast. I'm really excited about this conversation.
me too, Zandra, and I want to thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here.
Great, great. Well, let's just start off with an easy one, which is how did you get into this world of design? Because I know you have an interesting background.
Well, thank you. I mean, I guess everyone has an interesting background, but for me, this career has come relatively late in life. When I say I had another career first, I don't just mean like a little starter career. For a few years, I had a 30-year plus career in the feature film business, and I was an executive and then mainly a producer of films for, what seemed like was going to be my whole life.
Yeah.
And then about, I guess around 10 years ago, a shift came in the industry. Things
Mhm.
were slowing up.
Yeah.
And suddenly I wasn't as secure in my work. And I also found that I was bored with it and
Mm.
not enjoying it as much
Yeah.
anymore. I had always had a love for home design. Decorating my own homes was always a sideline for me. I had supervised serial renovations in my own house, and I was sort of quietly getting ready to start a new career. I just didn't know it. But when things kind of bottomed out for me in film, I decided to jump in by buying a fixer house in Los Angeles in Highland Park. And I'd always loved older homes, historic homes. That's what I've always lived in. And so I bought this house and I renovated it, paid for the whole thing myself with the intention of reselling it. And I did, and it went very well. And then I did it a second time. So I have like two fixers, 2 years in a row. And the second one just really caught fire. We had 12 offers
Oh,
on the house, and I had the idea of reaching out to all the people who did not get the house.
oh,
And I sent everyone a letter saying, I know you're disappointed, but you don't have to be because I can find you a house just like this. Well, you'll buy it and I'll fix it up just for you, and you won't have to
wow.
risk losing out on it. And that's
Wow.
really how I launched my career. From that list of original 11 people.
That is so smart. I also want to say that I've had several people in the film industry on this show, especially in set design, things like that, or on the
Mhm.
production side. And it makes so much sense to me. It's about storytelling and it's about creating spaces that characters are going to inhabit, and you want them to inhabit it as authentically as possible to that character. And I think too, you have to be so aware of every single little detail. And
Mhm.
I think you really you understand that in a way that is very, I feel very, very connected to. Could
Mhm.
just share some of your favorites, maybe the little things that you did or that you pulled out of someone's story that you added to their home that you just really loved, or that just really went a long way into telling a particular part of a story.
Well, okay, gosh, there are so many. In Pasadena, my recent client, when we did the big kitchen there, had some old spice cans that her mother had collected. She didn't have very many, but they're called Ben-Hur, and they come in a little red can.
Uh-huh.
And of course, I love things like that. And so that became, it was such a tiny thing, but when I was vintage shopping, I would find other Ben-Hur cans.
Mm.
And so I bought her like 8 of them. And
Right.
suddenly you've got a collection.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it
And a
isn't that
statement.
hard to, a statement, yes. And then it means so much. And, you know, if I had to use that as an example of what is the style of that kitchen,
Mm.
it could serve as well as anything else,
Mm-hmm.
because we used red as an accent color throughout the kitchen, even though it's not the main color at all, but
Right.
it's what people will remember, those 2 red lights, the,
Oh,
you know, the
yeah.
red kitchen clock, and those were things, some of them were hers, but some of them were mine, and I now they're hers, you know.
Yeah. Well, you
So,
took the kernel of this thing that she had that was from her mom that first of all meant
right.
something to her, and then you just brought it to life and highlighted it.
Yes, exactly. And that is the important part, is that, you know, it meant a lot to her.
Right.
You know, the trickier things are when a client has something or a bunch of things that are sentimental to them, and but you know, you just look at them and go, I can't work with
Yeah,
this, you know.
yeah.
It could, I mean, bad art is a very common example for me. You know, for example, someone has a poster from the museum of a certain artist. And by the way, I'm not against posters. I like
Hmm.
posters too. But let's say it's a mid-century artist,
Hmm.
and you can't afford to buy the originals from that artist because it's a famous person.
Right.
But we can look for other pieces that are in that style. And I have a good enough eye to be able to find amateur art. I can see that you have things on your wall too, that
Yeah.
that's
Well, that's
exactly what I
this is
collect
my
is,
thrift store. This is
yeah,
my thrift store still life painting wall. So we have the quote unquote real art in the rest of our house where my husband and I
got it.
both get to choose it. This is just my room.
Yeah.
So this is where I put the cheap stuff that I just love to collect it for the colors. Some of them are funny because they're very amateur and so they're not very good,
Right.
but I think that that's hilarious, and charming. But
I'm way into amateur art.
and back to this idea of Picasso just came to mind as you were talking about
Yes.
a poster of that from a museum, famous
Yes.
artist. Almost none of us can afford a Picasso, um, but it feels more impactful, I think, to see a real, actual oil painting done by
Yeah.
a non-famous person, but it's of the time period. Maybe the subject matter is similar than the
Yes.
poster of the Picasso. And I can see how that'd be a nice graduation step from living with your college posters to now buying art.
Yeah. Exactly. Or, you know, if you like posters, you know, there's a great tradition of very high quality poster art, lithographic printing,
Yes.
where the colors are poured directly onto the plate. And I collect those posters. You'll see
Oh,
them a lot in my rooms.
beautiful.
They're
Yes.
huge. Their
Yes.
colors are so rich. They're, you know, they are as good as they are an authentic artwork.
I want to point out one more detail that I don't
Yeah.
know if you were going to bring up or not, but there's
Hmm.
a scallop, I guess was painted,
Yes.
maybe red on the edge of a
No.
dining room. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, I do love that. And I'll tell you how it happened. First of all, it's a wallpaper border. That dining room we added to our scope of work at the very tail end of the job. The main
Okay.
job was the huge kitchen renovation. I just said, "Ah, it'd be so great if we could shoot the dining room too." But like, I can't, you know, they didn't
You
have
were
enough
you were
money to
almost
get new
done.
furniture,
Right.
nothing. So
Okay.
here's what I did. I put plants all around the room. We repainted it in this pale blue, but we arrived at the wallpaper border was just kind of something we could afford to do that would be a telling detail
Mm.
that would just upgrade, you know, and just tweak the room to make it look done and
Mm.
not just like an afterthought. And at first first we couldn't decide where to put it. I at first had it on the side of the cove, and that looked
Okay.
kind of cool as well. But we played around with it and decided that this looked the best. So it's actually flat on the ceiling,
Yeah.
going all the way around the room. But
It's so
just it's a
brilliant. And I just love the detail it's so subtle. And yet you're right. It tells you that the room is finished, or at least finished for now. I mean, I don't think any room is ever finished because we're always
yes,
tweaking, but it
no.
has been paid attention to. Maybe that's what I feel like. This room has
It's a
had
it's a
thought put into it.
finishing Exactly. It's a finishing touch that makes things look intentional. And that's a word I use a lot when I'm looking at my design schemes. Like, does it look intentional or does
Right,
it look like a mistake
right, right, right,
or an
right.
accident? I,
I have so many questions to
yes.
ask you. I want to
Okay.
talk about this living room.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
you and I both, we love an old home, and 9 times out of 10, I'm trying to
Right.
save anything that is old, right? That is
Yep.
historic to the home that you just really want to preserve and somehow make work. So I'm looking at this really vibrant, wonderful, breezy living room of yours, and I'm
Yeah.
assuming that tile surround was it's an aqua bold aqua color tile surround for those of you who aren't watching this podcast but just listening. And I'm wondering, how did you make that work, or was that something that you loved from the very beginning? You know, some
It's
people might walk in and
okay.
go, "Oh my gosh, how am I ever going to do anything with this
Okay.
aqua tile?"
Well, the aqua tile and the hearth tile, which is a slightly different color,
Oh yeah.
we put that in.
Oh my gosh.
This
Okay.
room, okay, so this room had original windows, well, no, some were original and some had been replaced. The
Yeah.
little windows surrounding the fireplace had been replaced with vinyl. So we had new wooden windows made for all the other windows in the house so that it would look and be original. Another issue though was the wainscoting, which
Mhm.
we loved, but it was much higher than what you see now on the
Oh.
wall. It was maybe five 5 feet high at least.
Oh.
But my client had an art collection and she said, I have nowhere to hang anything because there's not enough room on these walls to fit
Hmm.
pictures. So what we did all through around the house, everywhere there was wainscoting, we lowered it. And in this case, we chose the height of the mantle in the living room because it just made it make more sense. That became our height. Now, what had happened with the fireplace is that it must have been redone probably in the 60s. It it wasn't that bad. Like if we had been going for a mid-century look, we could have kept it and maybe just painted it. But we
Okay.
wanted to go back to the craftsman feel. So we just demoed the fireplace surround and the face of it and the hearth, and we chose those tiles are made by Arto.
Hmm.
They're from Mission Tile West in Pasadena, and they're very typical to what I thought would have been used. Probably everything except how bright that color is.
Mm.
And it may look slightly brighter in the picture than it does in real life. So the answer is that's our we selected that tile. And
Well,
then
that
it
is such a compliment to you because that's what I assumed was original.
yes, that makes me so happy because you thought it was original for sure. And that is my ultimate goal always. I mean, if
Yeah,
that's the case, then we really have done a good job.
right, right. So I want to talk about this room. This is sort of
Yeah,
this is my I love this. I mean, I'm a maximalist. I love pattern and
yes,
color, and I love it all mixed together. You even have what looks like a Turkish rug on top of a couch. We'll
I
talk
do.
about that. But what I want to say about this is the feeling I get. This is a room that's just off of the kitchen. And so it's like a sitting room. It's got a
Hmm.
big, beautiful window. So I bet a lot of nice light comes in there. It looks
Yes.
like the kind of room you sink into and you completely go, you just relax. And yet, I feel like most people right now, if you say the word relax, you think
Right.
spa, you think
Yeah.
bathrooms, you think neutral colors, all natural, nothing bold, nothing, just very soothing. This is the opposite of that.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about this room, and if you agree, was the point of this
I
room to really just kind of sink into it?
I think the answer is yes. I like to call this room the snug. You know, in an English house is a little study or small space, and they do them
Yeah.
so well in that country house
Yes.
style. But they had never really defined what it should be. And my clients
Mhm.
were kind of using it as just extra room. And they had like their kids' playthings in there.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
they wanted to keep that room for their daughter as a playroom, but they were also hoping this room could become the TV watching room
Yep.
and a switch hitter for a guest room.
Yeah.
So here's what we did. First of all, I added the arch that is at the entry so that
Yes.
it didn't just seem like drifting into extra space. And then we added those curtains, and those curtains are double-sided, and the curtain rod is on the inside, but if you close it, it still looks nice. You're not looking
Yeah.
at the
So the
back
so
of
the
the
curtain is
curtain.
hung sort of on the inside of the arch. So it's not over a window, it's
Yes,
over the opening to the room. And talk about
yes,
snug. I
and
mean, that alone, that right there lets you know this is a cozy spot.
exactly.
Yeah.
Then
Right.
we bought a sleeper sofa from Clad Home. Now, you can't really see what it looks like because I put this velvet Victorian, it's actually a tablecloth, but
Oh, okay. Okay.
it's a very fine textile that is part of my collection. I dressed this room to the nines for the photo shoot.
There's like a Bloomsbury vibe going on here with these
I agree.
patterns.
I
Keep
mean,
going.
so
Sorry.
I mixed, we did use William Morris wallpaper. That's a very famous pattern called
Yep.
Willow Bough.
Yep.
Very fond of it. I
Yep.
had the Roman shade custom made. The ottoman I brought in with another multicolored velvet floral and botanical print.
Yep.
The underneath rug, the sisal rug from Annie Selke, belongs to my clients.
Mm-hmm.
The Persian rug on top of it, I brought in for the shoot and layered it.
Mm-hmm.
It just adds so much
Yes.
depth to everything. And then, of course, key to the whole setup is the custom millwork that's built around the TV. We chose the
Mhm.
TV, the size they wanted. This is a perfect TV watching room
It is. It
because
is.
it was designed to watch that size TV from the distance of that couch.
It's not hidden, and yet, but it's still not the focal
No,
point of the room. And that's what I love about this room. That's what I love about small TV rooms that are purposefully
dedicated.
created for
Yeah.
that, as opposed to putting it in the common room, the living room, the bigger room where you might have guests. I'm picturing a little
Yeah.
girl with her dolls sitting
Yes.
on this couch, and there's so much going on in the room that I would think this is going to really sink into her memory bank and set off her own
Yeah.
imagination.
Here,
It's great for
here's the
kids.
what everyone wants to know is how do you balance, you know, when you're layering that many prints, and you said, I think you said you counted 10 prints. And
Yeah.
so that makes me feel very proud. But I think the key is every print can't, first of all, can't be the hero.
Mhm.
And if you've got an all over print like wallpaper, you know, choose wisely.
Mhm.
Willow Bough is a favorite of mine because yes, it's dense, but it's also very simple. It's maybe two, possibly three colors with the trim
Mhm.
in all. Really,
Mhm.
it's soothing. It's, you know,
Yes.
I'd say that is a relaxing color way. And then when you add a very exciting print like that's on that ottoman that's got like a
Yeah.
lot of some bright hits of color, or the iCat pink pattern that's on that pillow.
Mm.
So, you know, but that's a small, those are small pops within a ground of smaller scale, much smaller
Mhm.
scale. got to mix the scales, you've got to mix the colors.
Right.
It's a balancing act. Yeah.
And you've done it so beautifully.
Regarding television placement, because this is always a big issue.
Yes.
You know, and we started to touch on it in the dedicated TV room. To me, that's my number one choice, is in placing your television. If a house is lucky enough to have a dedicated space for watching television, then you can create the ideal scenario, which is building millwork around your television, that it lives within shelving and a little hutch below it. So you have a place for all your components for your television, the speakers, the little, all the whatever they're using now, sound bars. And then if you really want to, you can create doors that close it and you don't have to see the screen at all. I don't really believe in that. I like a home that's convenient. If something is used every day in a house, I'd rather it just live in plain sight. Where it becomes problematic is if there's only the main living room as the common room. And typically, like, the biggest bugaboo is over the fireplace.
Yes.
And the client wants to put it there. This is my nightmare, because to me, the thing you don't want to do is make your TV look like a shrine. Because to me, it's just so awful. Like, here we are at the altar of the television, and every night we gather around it, and it's just so depressing to me.
Right,
You know,
right.
I don't think anyone wants to think that they live like that. And then on practical sense, most often that spot above a fireplace is too high for a
It's too
good
high and your
viewing.
neck hurts when you're looking up at the
Your
TV. It
neck
doesn't even
hurts.
work.
Yeah. It's not even a good spot.
Yeah.
But what it is a great spot for is a beautiful artwork, or a mirror, or something that is worthy of having an altar, you know, some beautiful things, sconces that, you know. So to me, why would I give up like one of the most special locations in my common room to television watching? So to be avoided at all costs.
Yeah.
Another problematic location is bed. Like, some people are used to watching TV in their bedroom before they go to bed. I used to be one of those people when I was married. Now, happily, I don't have to do that anymore because I'm single. I always found it not relaxing to watch TV before bed. But some people, I understand. Some people, that's what they like to do. Recently in a house, they did this after we finished, but did want a TV in their bedroom. Their bedroom was small enough that when the closet was open with that big wide opening, they could they put their TV on a console inside the closet.
Oh.
And it was close enough to the beds that they could literally just open the doors to their closet and watch TV from bed. It didn't really take up that much space in the closet because the clothes hang in front of it when it's not being watched. And then when they want to watch it, they open the doors, they move the clothes aside, and they watch TV.
I love it.
Very clever, and they came up with it. But you know, there are always things you can do.
Yes. I want to talk about the things that just catch your fancy personally. And I feel like I kind of spotted a few things as I'm looking through all of your photos.
Yes.
Breakfast nooks, open shelving, portraits you seem to like. Tell us about some of your favorites and why.
Okay. Yes. All the things you mentioned are just part of my style. Most, if not all, of my kitchens have open shelving. I do like uppers in certain situations. I love them surrounding the oven hood. I like my oven hoods to have a very nice surround with molding, and I like to put a picture on the oven hood.
I noticed that, and I love that.
It's a rotating gallery, because all you do is lean the picture up there on the molding. It's leaning against the slanted hood.
Right.
The open shelves are just a built-in display for all your treasures. I want my houses to show off their stuff.
Mhm.
So if I build a kitchen with those with open shelves, I can show all their glassware. I can do piles of plates. I don't think anyone has to feel like they don't have nice enough things to
Right.
display. I do think shelves can be practical, but also I love the unexpected mix of like that. Then now there's a little oil painting in the kitchen next to cookbooks.
Right.
And also there's a little lamp in the kitchen. I remember when I was a kid, my best friend, her parents were European, and I don't know, they just had their own style in their apartment, and they always had a little lamp in their
Oh,
kitchen.
love it.
And at night, like when you'd come in to get a glass of water, that little light was always left on. It's something that's just a good example of charm.
Right.
Portraits, you're like bringing a whole personality into the house. These faces of people that might be other family members. Another kind of picture I collect and love to use are silhouettes. And there's some that are really old. You know, you have a lot of like Napoleon and
Right.
George Washington, those
Right.
historic figures. I have several from Disneyland
Oh my
that
gosh,
used
so
to
do
go. You could
I.
get, right?
Oh my God.
That
So,
was it.
so far you have said so many things. Love art in the kitchen and lamps
Mhm.
because that's what makes the kitchen feel like any other room of the house, as opposed
Yes.
to this separate place that's just where all of the utilitarian stuff happens. It made the kitchen feel like
Yeah.
a room, right? The lamp and as well as the artwork. But then you just said Disneyland. That is so funny because when I was at Disney World with my kids when they were younger, there was some artist there doing
Yeah.
with scissors 5 minutes to
Yeah.
cut out their silhouette. And on the one hand, I'm like, oh my
Right.
gosh, this is so cheesy because it's in the most commercialized place on earth, Disney World, but it's very good. And it was actually, I
No,
still have them. I still love them.
it's a very fun art form, and there's a tremendous amount of skill involved.
Yeah.
They cut them freehand with a pair of
Yes, freehand.
scissors. Think about it. Like, could you do that? I
Oh, I loved
couldn't.
watching it.
Um,
It looked so amazing.
I love that you can tell usually the era it's from just based on the
Oh,
hat they might be wearing, the
yep.
collar, the glasses. To me,
Yes.
they have tremendous charm,
Yes.
and it's a great thing to collect because they're not that expensive.
Right.
You can keep them in a box. I don't have them all hung up all the time. But when you do hang them together on a wall, they are wonderfully graphic because they're
Mm,
black and white. So
exactly.
it's a just a great tool for a decorator to have those kind of in your bag of tricks, if you
Yeah,
will.
exactly. Exactly.
Likewise, little sculpture, good pottery, studio pottery, little statues, candlesticks,
Mm,
all of those are things that I collect. Because if you don't have a lot of candles, then you're missing out on candlelight at dinner, which is candlelight is the best light. I'm trying to think what else. Portraits, landscapes, you
yep.
said still lifes. I love still lifes. Paint by number paintings.
Oh, yes.
They have such charm. The color palette will tell you if it was from the 50s
Right.
or the 70s.
They feel
Yeah.
like they come out of a particular time. They're not
Yes.
at all generic. The subject matter,
Right.
what was pop culture? What was the thing to paint
Yes,
back
exactly.
then?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. But you just put your finger on it when you said it's not generic. It's specific. I mean that's true. That's true in filmmaking too. It's true in
Mm,
art. The more specific something is, you might think fewer people could relate to it, but it's the opposite. More
mm.
people can relate to something that's very particular. And I think that's true in home decor too. By being very specific, it's just from a true place. That's just how I see it.
And when something's generic,
Right.
your eyes just sort of wash over it. Like they
Yeah,
don't even
glaze
take it in.
over. Yep.
And so then you don't even have an opportunity to kind of make a connection with somebody else. Whereas if you invite somebody into your home and you've got all of these things that are so specific to you and who you are and your memories and your experiences, there is an immediate bit of curiosity that comes up to ask the person,
Right.
what is that from? Or where did you get that? And
And
it's
yes,
just
and
where the magic is.
I'd say another idea to weave into this is the idea of, we say in design, the hand of a fabric, or I love her hand in the wallpaper design, can see her
Yeah.
hand,
Yes.
because that means you can see that she drew that flower. It's not a printed flower, it's
Right.
by her hand. The hand of a fabric is, how does it feel? That just speaks to so many areas of connectivity. And so
Yes.
that's what we're looking for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the handmade is about the humanity. I mean, it's what you see the human in
Yes,
it, right? And that's
right.
why I love the handmade. And I think you can either do it yourself or you can buy
Yep.
things
Or,
from artisans.
oh, there's countless ways to get there. And also, you make a lot of mistakes as you go. I know I have, but
Oh yeah.
I have learned at this point to trust my intuition, and that even if I'm having an off like moment and I've lost the thread of something,
Mhm.
I know if I keep at it, it'll come back around.
And that level of confidence is priceless, whether you're hiring somebody to do it or whether you're developing it yourself.
Exactly.
And it's the best part about getting older.
Yes, I'm with you there. I feel like I was lucky to come to this career later in life.
Oh yeah,
When I think
yeah.
about all the things that I bring into my work, I've traveled widely. I made films all over the world. I bring all of that into and I know enough to seek those experiences out from my clients too. Always ask them where they've traveled, where they've
Yes.
been, what are their core experiences, and try
Yes.
and weave those stories into the story of their home.
Right. Absolutely. Julia, this is so lovely. So thank you. And thank you for coming
Mhm.
on the show.
Thank you, Zandra. I am so grateful that you found me and reached out to me. I think it was just an excellent connection. I can see by your home that we have a lot in common, but I
Yes.
really have enjoyed this conversation.